Hello to everyone. I'm streaming straight from the coast of Portugal in Europe. A lovely small city. As I spent it like a couple of weeks, there is the most common word which is used amongst Portuguese, and it's loudly obrigada, with looking into everybody's eyes of each other, and it means thank you here. And I would like to thanks to my sponsors, mecenates, people who are allowing me to be here and doing this job for you. So exposing the truth, what's going on in Poland, what's going on in 5G with this COVID situation we have currently, and other stuff we are researching and investigating from perspective of a new system. So I would like personally thanks to Katarzyna, to Szymon, Mariusz, Deres, Bogusław, Rafał, Krystyn, who helped me by PayPal, and also to Stanisław from Stróż, Gabriela from Kowale, Paulina from Aleksandrów, Henryk from Poznań, Krzysztof, Anna from Polanica, Teresa from Kotla, and Arkadiusz from Poznań. And I would like to welcome a new patron on my Patreon account. Demix Bean is this nickname of this guy. So welcome in my Patreon community. And today, thanks to your support, we can discuss and show to our friends and everybody who is interested what's going on in Poland. One of the biggest scandal of corruption in Europe, which took place exactly in Poland, and which we explored during last couple of years, what it is and what it's about. And now we can share and explain to our fellow people and open-minded and free people all around the world how bad the situation can be actually in the democratic open world. So we have many of proofs about I will be talking about, and there are many people who can tell you the same, but mostly they will never had this possibility I have to have a voice through the mass media communication. So treat me as a messenger of what's the truth and what is really going on in the Europe, in the Poland, because it's completely opposite to what you may think of, that we have some problems, we have some protests, we are past member of the Soviet Union, we have now the democracy, we have all NGOs, we have biggest corporation, we are one of the biggest outsourcing hub in Europe, but it doesn't matter if you really don't know and you are not insider from, let's say, politics, or you never did a business in Poland, you were never realized how badly corrupted and destroyed and hijacked our government and country is. So of course we are people who are trying to expose it, to change it, because we believe that the truth is something which set us free. So let me begin with some documents which are not nothing new. They are actually pretty old, but the source of these documents may surprise you a little bit, because we will be talking about documents from Defense Intelligence Agency from United States from the 80s. And the topic of this document is biological effects on electromagnetic radiation, radio waves and microwaves, Eurasian communist countries. So let me give you some background on this. In the past couple of months in Europe and all over the world, we was witness of unprecedented and let's say totalitarian event or paradoxical situation. Well, all over the world, among almost every country we know in modern world, and in almost every city, the not tested on biological and healthy effect technology was installed. During not less than 1 hour, 1 year, not longer than 1 year ago, we have almost none 5G station in Poland. Currently we have maybe 10 or more thousands of it across the Poland. In Asia and for example China, Wuhan, they have like thousands and number of thousands of these 5G stations. And how it actually is possible to install such a how to say fragile or invasive infrastructure all over the world without any studies which will be proving that it will not have any effect on our health. And of course it's a big scandal, and there are protests all around the world, around Europe. Thousands of people are protesting in small cities, bigger cities, and they all are telling the same, that this technology is an experiment on our society. And I will go even forward with this narrative, and I will tell that this is the attempt to genocide, this is the word, and this is the act against all societies, and the consequences are and will be unprecedented. We can compare it to the biggest catastrophes and let's say social experiments in the last centuries, such as communisms and all kind of totalitarian systems, which forced millions of people to death and which put like old established structures and elites and convinced them to death. We are talking on such a scale of the aggression and machination around our society, our countries and our cities. And the question is, who is doing that and what is the reason? Because there are a lot of theories behind it and around it, which are of course interesting to investigate, but definitely we should ask who is benefit from this technology. And on our proof, I will show you that implementing of this technology was one big chapter of corruption and destroying the social trust between the people and the government in Polish history. Almost every social rule, every law, even constitution was broken during the legislation process preparing our country for implementing this technology. And me personally and my friends was witness of how it happened, and we are on the first front of people who was opposing it, and we have many opportunities to talk and to write protest directly to the main political parties. We personally talked with the ministries controlling bodies. We spent countless number of hours on the commissions and on the streets, trying to stop this legislation process. And we mostly failed, because the power and corruption in our government is such tremendous that normal people and people who want to know the truth, want to have control over our own country, are even not allowed to have a voice in the mass media. We was censored on the social media platform. A lot of my friends have different, let's say, intimidation practice on them. Many people was threatened by the parts of and people from the current system. We even was the victim of the trolling campaign on Twitter, on other social media platforms, run by people working in the large low companies, and even people from the Ministry of Digital Affairs and other government structures was taking part to attack us anonymously or personally on those social platforms. So I want to show you this document I started with. As you see that the source of this document is more trustfully than I am for you, maybe. This is Department of Defense Intelligence of United States of America from 70s, 80s. And the reason behind this document was to recognize how Soviet Union can use these microwave frequencies to make people harm or use it as a weapon against United States personnel, military personnel. So let's see it through. I will show you a couple of documents of such a heavy, let's say, authority, and then we will confront the meaning of these documents with the statements of government of Poland and statements of representatives of telecom companies, which are completely opposite to what scientists from United States express in those documents. So this study discussed the biological effects on electromagnetic radiation in the radio and microwave range up to 300 MHz. It is not within the realm of the study to provide detailed description on every laboratory experiment. Such data have been purposely omitted in favor of analytical approach. An attempt has been made to identify the principal areas of research and to discuss the significance of experimental results. So we have some background, but I will just stop in the fragments which are here. So if the more advanced nations of the West are strict in the enforcement of stringent exposure standards, there could be unfavorable effect on industrial output and military function. The Eurasian communist countries could, on the other hand, give lip service to strict standards but allow their military to operate without restriction and thereby gain the advantage in electronic warfare techniques and the development on anti-personnel application. The potential for development of number of anti-personnel application is suggested by the research published in the USSR, East Europe and the West. sounds and possibly even words which appear to be originating increasingly can be induced by signal modulation at very low average power densities. Combination of frequencies and other signal characteristics to produce other neurological effects may be feasible in several years. The possibility of inducing metabolic diseases is also suggested. Animal experiments reported in the open literature have demonstrated the use of low-level microwave signals to produce deaths by nerve seizure or by neurological pathologies resulting from breaching of the blood-brain barrier. So this is exactly the same what doctors are saying right now. There are many publications in scientific journals talking about breaching this blood-brain barrier on the forced by affected by those microwave pulsation, and it can cause the tumor because it makes some toxic waste from our organisms get to the brains, for example, to very fragile part of our neurological structure. And of course, telecommunication companies are denying such an effect exists, and they keep water in mouth if this literature is presented to them. Let's go. This is only the first page from this document, and what this is like breathtaking knowledge about the effect of electromagnetic on our health, on our bodies, on our organism. Let's see what we have there. Soviet and East European scientists believe that biological side effects occur at power densities that are too low to produce obvious thermal effects. Those are research and knowledge presented to military personnel of United States, telling that there are biological effects caused by electromagnetic fields. And this is thing which is completely denied by fake scientists and corrupted institutions in Poland, which are presented in public media to the whole population, and they are completely ignoring the fact and number of studies which are focused on biological effects, on possible biological effects. They are only addressing the issue that our body can heat up about 1 degree. But they are telling the lie that there are no biological effects. I mean, destroying of DNA, breaking this blood-brain barrier, lowering level of antioxidants in our blood. Those are effects which are not studied anymore. There are no funds for such studies. It's forbidden even to think that such an effect can occur. So this is why we need to read the reports from 50 years to have the knowledge which is denied and didn't discover anymore. The depth of penetration of the waves is also variable and again depends on the frequency, wave polarization and the physical properties of the system, dielectric and geometric. But typical penetration are on the order of 1/10 of the wavelength. But therefore very short waves are absorbed primarily by the skin, while long wavelengths penetrate too much greater depths. So we have section 2, which is about biological significance of radio waves and microwaves. So probably the Minister of digital affair, and his main guy, which is Wanda Buk, the daughter of former general of Polish army, they will laugh if you, for example, tweet about biological effects. They start to present yourself, even if you are a scientist, as somebody who loses its mind. They will attack you and laugh at you and put you into the box with flat earthers. It's normal and 100% practice of government officials in Poland today. Why they are doing that? It's all about corruption. I will prove it to you in the next minute. So, part 1, blood. The action of microwaves on human erythrocytes, permeability to potassium and sodium ions was also investigated. The mechanism of action appeared to be an inhibition of active transport and altered diffusion through the pores in the membrane. The latter may be caused by the influence on UHV energy of the membrane itself or on the hydrate sodium cation and potassium cation. The microwaves either change the membrane structure, thereby increasing the potassium-sodium cation and potassium cation diffusion and reducing the concentration gradient, or somehow block the mechanism of active ion transport. Okay, to summarize the effect of electromagnetic radiation exposure on the blood, the following general changes emerge, although conflicting reports are also presented. There is of course discussion, but this is the very strong argument to consider. It cannot be denied in public debate, and we cannot laugh about it, for sure. The number of people who are dying each day, each month by the cancer in Poland, like each day is hundreds of people dying from the cancer. And scientists, the medical institution cannot find the correlation between the main environmental factor which occur to be present like in the last decades. They cannot find the correlation, and they even didn't search for it. They didn't do any mass studies about, for example, correlation between the exposure on IMF fields and the probability of having cancer. Because there are some places in Poland, like in Krakow, that in one block more than 10 families died on cancer, and they was fighting for years to displace the towers which was installed like 50 or 100 meters around the building. And most of people who are living on the one side of the building died. And there are no studies and no institution, no Sanepid, nobody from Ministry of Health was interested. People are telling that it's not possible, that for sure it's not from that. People are not allowed to consider, even to tell that they feel bad and unhealthy around those towers. They are sent to the psychiatric hospitals. Neither people want to study these effects and what can be real reason behind those mass deaths in Krakow. But now it's like the epidemic. It's completely disaster. The numbers are terrifying. How fast people are dying right now. Even in the schools, for example, kids are dying from the towers and antennas installed above their heads. And all such cases are hidden. And there are two institutions which are so tight with the Ministry of Digitalization and telecommunications companies that even their directors are previously working somehow for the telcos. And now they are only ones who are telling publicly the lies about non-present and absence of any medical studies about the biological effect of EMF on people's health, on human body. And it was proven those conflict of interest between director, for example, Żurek from the National Institute of Radiation, because he was previously working for the telcos. And the scientists who are always presented on conferences organized by the Ministry of Digital Affairs are guys who have no at all any scientific baggage and experience and publication on the field. And they are only like 3 people presented as experts. And everybody who is not agree with the main narrative of the government and telco, which is the same, for example, Mr. Leszczyński, people from National Institute for Studying Work Environment from Łódź, it named by the Mr. Hofer, are even not invited, and their opinions are not counted and considered through the legislative process in Poland during the implementation of 5G, which we almost every time we bring the case that they are ignored, and reports made by Institute of Medical Studies for like work environment was hidden by half year in the Ministry of Health by a minister who is currently a guy who is responsible for losing and wasting hundreds of millions of złotych, so hundreds of millions of dollars, on useless or even didn't delivered medical equipment which was ordered in companies listed on the United Nations blacklist for selling the weapon. And the guy who is currently the Minister of Health, who raised the EMF limits 100 times above the what was previously in Poland, the same guy ordered to buy those equipment like the respiratories, masks, which was never delivered and cost our budget more than 200 million złotych. So mostly those people are like criminals working in white gloves. The one guy is responsible to allow telecommunication companies to install 10,000 of illegal equipment across the Poland, which is not safe for use in public places, because the job law that restricts the environment we can allow to work didn't allow us to spend hours in the environment we currently have all around the Poland, because the norm in the workplaces is 10 times lower than in public places. And the guy who is responsible for practically taking all the limits from the telecommunications companies is the same guy who is responsible for destroying our economy by fake pandemic, and he's the guy who is delivering orders directly from the world government, because as people in Poland know, he is member of a secret society of some kind of knights, like masonry and such a communities, and he is almost in every case used by the secret societies to push legislative or the narrative in the way which is beneficial for guys who are trying to reshape or destroy our economy and people's life because they benefit from it. This is that simple as that. And obviously, if you want to find the reason behind something, we need to find out who is benefiting from the process. So what are benefits of telco companies? What are benefits of financial institutions? And what are benefits of people working in our government from changing the law to the will of telco companies and to close our economy on the false pandemic reason? So we can very easily connect the dots if we are not afraid to think by ourselves. So I will show them more documents. Just give me a couple more minutes. It's very important video, one of the most important on my channel. You can see this, what are the effect on human cells which are not existing according to the Ministry of Health of Poland, who argue that changing of medical law in Poland need to be done because of the interests of telco companies. This is strictly a fact that it was the argument used in explanation why medical law needs to be changed in Poland. So Minister of Health is taking care on private interests of telco companies, not on the health of Polish people. So this is completely a disaster and we need to change it radically, and now, right now, very fast, because people are dying, literally. And those are, for example, facts. The document has like 15 years already, more than 15 years. And where are the further studies? If you see what I see, you need to ask people from your government, where are further studies on this topic? Why scientists who are doing the research about it are keep silenced? We have the same situation like with the nicotine, where we have commercials with the doctors smoking camels. It's completely the same situation, but it can be too late if we didn't stop it very soon. So there is many more effects on the metabolism, on the neural system, and other observation. This is only one study you can find here. The second study is also prepared to protect military personnel. So we have like top-notch scientists doing that job. They have all necessary budget and they are not afraid because they are on the war situation. So they don't care about political correctness. We have our researchers, and the topic title of the thesis is protecting military personnel and the public from the hazards of electromagnetic radiation from military communication and radar system. So in this document there is mention about recompensation, financial recompensation, and a lot of processes like that when people was putting their government and military agencies to the court to the settlement of many hundred thousands of dollars because there are medical effects on them. I personally know a guy who was working in such environment, and the health effects are obvious and most widely known among the people from the military and telecommunication personnel. For example, that they cannot have sons, they only have daughters. and other effects. For example, guy who is fighting with those telco breaking Polish law, he almost died, and because he works 10 years on the towers. Those are potential effects on people's health. You can find in this document, in this thesis. And the third one, it's very interesting as well. Let me open it for you. Yes, it's from Rome Laboratory from '94. Radio frequency, microwave radiation, biological effects and safety standards review. It's for a public release and distribution unlimited, so I wonder why you never saw it in your country, in Poland. The study of human exposure to radio frequency microwave radiation has been the subject of widespread investigation and analysis. It is known that electromagnetic radiation has biological effects on human tissue. An attempt has been made by researchers to quantify the effect of radiation on the human body and to set guidelines for safe exposure levels. A review on the pertinent findings is presented along with the American National Standards Institute, ANSI, recommended safety standard, and the United States Air Force permissible exposure limit for RF-MF radiation. An overview of research that was conducted in the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe is also included in this report. In '56, the Department of Defense directed the Army Force to investigate the biological effects of exposure to radio frequency microwave radiation. So, those all documents are about biological effects, which are not existing if you trust the government. It gives you thought, yeah? So I think that's enough for the argument that such effects exist. You can study it. There are as well the meta-studies of the subject did by the hundreds of European and worldwide specialists, like a Bio-Initiative report, and those meta-studies are studying deeply into very specific effects and correlation between MF and changing and destroying our health. There are even simple experiments which can be made by the children to grow some plant in the environment with this radiation from, for example, a Wi-Fi router. And what we have here, like most of cardiovascular effects reported in Soviet Union, in response to earlier Soviet Union reports, World Health Organization, who decided to conduct comprehensive study on the biological effects of exposure to RF, MF radiation. There was a publication, and the WHO investigate found evidence linking exposure of RF, MF radiation to cardiovascular disease and cancer. You hear that? The North Korean population suffered from an unusual high number of heart attacks and cases of cancer. In addition, it was found that the affection rate of those diseases was much higher among residents living closest to the radar site. So there are no effects. There is no reason to believe and to search and study if there are no similar effects with the normal GSM and 5G towers and people dying from the areas where they are installed. I think that we are facing the most dangerous situation in the human history, and one of the biggest corruptual scandal in the human history, where our governments was hijacked and corrupted by telco companies and international institutions, which are themselves corrupted and take over by the lobbyists and funds from telecommunication and financial sector, because it's linked together, because the 5G goes with the new currency, it goes with the new social platforms, it goes with the fourth industrial revolution, so it goes with the whole new economy and whole new platform for industries in all countries across the Europe and all over the world. So there are very strong stakeholders and beneficiaries of implementing 5G in such a rapid time and period. And who are they? Who can vote the World Health Organization? Who can vote the whole government and whole ministries of Poland? For example, there are still some very interesting personal correlation. For example, the main minister responsible for implementing 5G, and it's a woman who lied so many times that it's even sad to mention the name. But she was daughter of general who was in front and was face of bringing Poland into the NATO. So those are people very strongly linked with United States establishment and let's even say deep state. The same is with the Minister of Digitalization, Marek Zagórski, who is a guy from the party which is one of the most philo-Semitic parties in Poland. And they are not afraid to present photos from their meetings with the Ericsson company, and other materials are available where government officials are directly showing their links with the industry and with the foreign secret forces, because this is also unprecedented situation where, for example, Israeli and all secret services, Mossad and so on, have meeting in Poland all together. Or, for example, that the Israeli Knesset is discussing and debating in Poland, have its plenary meetings. And it's all with the knowledge of the Polish government and complete ignorance of the media and the general population that such a things happened, which cannot happen in sovereign country. That, for example, there are international conferences and military alliances organized on the area of Poland without even noticing our government and general public that we are part of and we are host of anti-Iran, for example, conference, and we know the last. This is the situation, this is real position of Polish government in the world stage. It's very, very sad, and this is why I'm telling it to you. Because the truth can heal us. So this is only the one case, this 5G implementation, where obviously there is conflict and there is paradox of what WHO was telling before and what they are telling now. Because on the main page of WHO you can find the statements, sourceless statements, that there is no healthy effect of 5G on people's health. And they completely ignored and forget about previous studies and what they were telling before. The same is, for example, in Ministry of Health, which published the document and have some letter when they agree that the one type of cancer was caused by the telephone, and we have it on paper and we are trying to remember it to the officials because they forget it very fast. And now the position of the Ministry of Digital Affairs is that there are no such effects, even if they have it in front of their eyes. They are even ignoring what's happening in European Union, that they suggesting to take some conservative measures, and until it will be not proven that it's safe, to do not implement this technology, and even to lower the possible limits in the countries in Europe, not taking these rules off, as we have actually in Poland right now. That, for example, in public places you can transmit and have your these antennas on so high energy level that the medical equipment can be malfunctioning in this environment, because it was tested only to the environment where will be the maximum 10 volts per meter. And in Poland you can radiate with the power of more than 60 volts per meter. So like 6 times more, and it goes exponentially, so it's not the simple math. But imagine that. There are many documents exposing those health effects, those effects on blood, on nervous system. Even there are countries like the France, for example, which are taking off this Wi-Fi equipment from the schools, because they cannot hide that there are effects on childs and kids, that they cannot focus, they are anxious, and other symptoms of being exposed for so long time. Because we need to differentiate that there are some peaks which can be dangerous, of course, but even lower powers but constant radiation can cause other effects as not healthy as those from the peaks. So you can find the links to these documents below the video, and I promise to you that I will tell you a little bit more about the corruption, and one of the biggest corruption scandal in the world, which is that the whole government of Poland and all the institutions are not functioning towards benefits of Polish citizens. There was changed to the mechanism and to tool for destroying and stealing from Poles, and we have proof for that. We also have many proofs of that the election process is also destroyed, and from 30 years there is no legit government in Poland, because, for example, control of all media and companies responsible for political polls and for counting the voices, all those companies are somehow linked with the current and previous, which is the same establishment ruling our country, and it's not democratically choose government. And I call it that it's a flaw in the system, as in Windows system. There is a joke that even in Windows Bill Gates cannot protect computers on viruses. So how he can protect human body from viruses? But it's not so funny. So there are some accidents, like in many cases, that people who was trying to vote in the previous municipal election, like 36,000 of them was sent back without possibility to vote, and with no further discussion and explanation of why it happened at all. So we have like 100% of people voted in 3 district committees in Warsaw. So no one died, everyone was present. Such a paradox. And in many places more cards were drawn from the ballot boxes than were issued. Some seniors did not receive the presidential election card at all. The main lady who was president, who was previously involved in reprivatization process. It is very famous in Poland that the members of the establishment stole from the public like thousands of real estates and very precious areas in the capital city, and they for now still are doing that. They are stealing real estates on the false papers that are proving that they are ancestors. The ancestors was owners of the land or on the building, and there is whole corrupted scheme made from lawyers, judges, or city officials doing that on the mass scale until today. And those are like billions of dollars. So this is what keep those people in good shape, those money from, for example, only this one crime. I'm talking about people from the media. I'm talking about people who was at the beginning on the current establishment head of national banks. I am talking about people who are presidents or were until, for example, this year. So I think the most interesting are the images, because there is told that one picture can show you more than thousands words. So the research was made based on the open data from the registered companies and actionaries of those companies, like 20-30 years before, and we followed the money flew from example from the United States Corporation to the Case Foundation, which was such a hub for English and American corporation to enter Poland after communism. And almost all links in Poland in current establishment starts there. There are also some interesting companies where people from the Secret Service are meeting, and there are links to the IT companies, to financial companies. Almost in each important and beneficial sector there are some people who started their careers after the communism ends and this capitalistic and democratic system started in Poland, and people from the previous communist establishment started their careers in the boards and as directors or managers of main banks, television stations, pool companies, and every aspect of the country. They take almost all of it. Even if the flags was changed and name of the party have changed, the people are mostly the same. And one interesting case is that the pool company director, which is presented to the polls after every election, the Anna, there is name somewhere, you can find, is the lady who was previously one of these young people who was grown by the communist establishment to replace them after they will go to the shadows. And Anna with Rafał has very interesting history. If you are a Pole, you can it will be easier for you to do your own research. I encourage you to don't trust me and do your own research in the open databases, where you can find the same as I am showing you right now on the screen, and you can dig more into aspects you like. If you, for example, like to discover which IT companies are delivering the servers and softwares for elections, you can find links to the company and previous director of government cell that he is doing that. If you like to see connections in financial system, you can find the guy who installed all bankomats, cash machines, ATMs in Poland. You can find the links to people who are sitting in the boards of the social community banks, and that's also the case in many European countries. And it's very important to know that the it's almost like 7-8 billion dollars is consumed by the party sinecures and people who are sitting and managing the cities in all Polish cities. And budgets of our Polish cities are very piece of cake for the international banks who keep those money in their pockets, and they are selling debts, for example, for European projects. And after communism we have like 55 billion in banks, but now the amount of debts is growing like exponentially. So it's the disaster that almost everything in Poland is managed in such way to drag people more into the debts, which will be not paid at all, but it makes us all slaves by this apparatus and this establishment. So they will do it to keep everything as it is, because they own and manage almost every aspect of our country, and own and manage almost every or all cities in Poland, having like tremendous incomes from the banks, but not legal incomes, but they are somehow by the foreign accounts or by the positions in international institutions, they are rewarded, for example, for taking those debts. And I'm sure that you know this practice from your country as well, but we investigate it very deeply. For example, links between all companies who are doing social surveys and studies, they are almost from the same source of the communist generals who did this manipulation of elections by pretending that they are studying the real opinion. They are actually creating opinion. Situation, for example, where new candidates have like 12% from the beginning in the in these electoral votes polls. And for example, people who are trying to get into the politics without being part of establishment, after 30 years can have like 1% of votes in those polls. And it's all over again the same situation, that they are bringing from the hat as a rabbit some new faces, and they're replacing old presidents and old apparatus with the new one. But the source is always the same, and you find the personalities in NGOs and think tanks such as the case I mentioned before, where, for example, Mr. from United Kingdom, who was later on Minister of Finance in Poland, started his career with Mr. Balcerowicz, who conducted the such strategy to privatize all Polish economy and industry with like on 10%, giving everything almost for free to Rothschild companies and funds and Rockefeller companies and funds, and until today we are ruled and owned by the same elite with the same faces, or maybe with some small exceptions that sometimes they are putting the new face or new logo or new brand on their new founded parties, but actually they are the same, and only people who are watching TV are believing that the new candidates and new parties are something really new. Thank you very much for your attention and take care. Greetings from Portugal.